Our final high-impact practice is the newest added to the list, e-portfolios, electronic portfolios. We're going to talk briefly about why e-portfolios aren't just a HIP, but a meta-HIP, why they're not just documents, and that's really important. And we'll address the age-old, well, couple-year-old question of why the E? Why not just portfolios? Why e-portfolios? Let's go. E-portfolios actually weren't part of the original 10 high-impact practices created by George Q in 2008, or listed in 2008. But as the years went by, Q and other researchers looked at high-impact practices, and they realized there's a place for e-portfolios among these practices as well. Not just as a high-impact practice of its own, but as a meta high-impact practice, because they allow students to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate all of the learning they've done in all the other high-impact practices. So you see right there those key Bloom's verbs, analyze, synthesize, and evaluate. Putting together a portfolio demands that students are doing some higher level thinking, so it's a high-impact practice on its own, but it's also a meta-HIP. Given that intent and that focus on higher level thinking, on really analyzing what they've learned, students have to look at e-portfolios as more than documents. It's not just the papers or the files that you would generate. If all you do is get to the end of your college career and download your whole Moodle into a zip file, that's not a portfolio. That's just documents. The e-portfolio is not just the product, but the process of composing that portfolio. The e-portfolio needs to be a very intentional and intelligent higher level thinking exercise, a critical thinking exercise, in which students reflect on their learning. They integrate different projects and different experiences into a coherent whole, into a narrative in their portfolio, and they collaborate with others to pull together the best of their material into that e-portfolio. Now, there's even a little bit of empathy training in e-portfolios. We ask students to kind of go beyond their own experience and think about how their learning is going to look to others, how the artifacts they present are going to portray their skills and their knowledge. And that requires thinking not just about, well, what is my best project, but how will different projects I've done come across differently and persuade different employers or graduate schools or people with different interests in the things I might do for them. Seeing your work through other people's eyes is a valuable part of the e-portfolio creation process. So when you have students do portfolios, really emphasize that fact. We're not just dumping every paper and poster you've ever made. We are critically analyzing our work and putting together stories about ourselves, about who we are, that will speak to different audiences outside of the campus community. So, e-portfolios can be really impactful, but why the E? Why does it have to be an electronic portfolio? Well, picture of my friend Bob here should make that clear. If you really want to make printouts of 4-foot wide posters and put them in a giant canvas pack and tote that around with you to every job interview, you can. But clicking send on that 4-foot tall briefcase is going to cost you about $50 in postage. Clicking send on your e-portfolio costs you one click of the mouse. Not too tough. So there's obvious physical convenience to doing an electronic portfolio, but there are more learning advantages as well. Consider that when we have students put together an electronic portfolio, they're going to be working with digital tools. Maybe they put it on a blog, maybe they're using Publisher, maybe they're using, video recordings, synthesizing lots of different multimedia, and using digital tools that a lot of their employers are going to be looking for. So it's good practice at some practical technical skills. Plus, e-portfolios involve social features. I mentioned hitting send on the portfolio. Think about how when you put things on LinkedIn or other online portfolios, you hit share, you hit like. On LinkedIn, for instance, there's that whole business of recommending other people for certain skills and getting them to recommend you. An e-portfolio becomes something more than just one set of documents that you tote around in your bag. It becomes something that you share with others and that others can contribute to, even as you contribute to their e-portfolios. So the social features of e-portfolios engage some continuing collaboration in presenting your story of yourself, your students' stories of who they are and what they've become throughout their college experiences. So in those ways, e-portfolios are kind of the capping off of all the high impact practices, a way to bring them all together and show the world what they've achieved in their college experience.